Well, I said I wasn't going to mention this Clematis after the second week, but every single week it seems to get better and better. This is Dr. Rupel. Welcome to HortTube. My name is John Putnam. This is the weekly garden tour that I do here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B. This is a garden project that's been going on for a couple of years now, and still lots more on the agenda for this. It's come a long way in that amount of time, and here's a before photo right here from this front garden. It was only about 18 months ago, and now you're seeing it come together. The area along the street out here, if I'll have Steph start to move around out here to the street area, this is about the best that it has looked. It actually looked great late last summer, but through the winter, most of the perennials had gone dormant. I need a few more things out here, a couple more things out here that are evergreen, that are kind of space, holders during the winter time. I've got a few noxious weeds that are come up here and there. This neighborhood is just so full of noxious weeds. Here's a sweet autumn clematis that I just broke it off, so it's going to come right. It's going to come right back. But that's one that I got to be on the lookout for all the time. And then here's a Tradescantia or spiderwort that. These things are all over the neighborhood. Unfortunately, as it was coming up here, it looked enough like a few of the other bulbs and other perennials that happen to be in this spot. You can see this allium starting to come up there. That was a very small bulb last year, so that one will not be a giant performer this year, but that bulb should get bigger each year. You can see Dianthus finally showing some color. They were really hurt this winter. But there's lots of cone flowers coming up here, and all sorts of perennials. Most of the bulbs, the early spring flowering bulbs, have passed. There's a bee balm that's probably tripled in size from when it went to sleep last year. And again, more cone flowers and other various perennials. This will be a big showy area here all summer. There's a Salvia nemorosa that's already decided to start blooming, and got let's see, there's some Liatris that's coming back from last year. I did a jumpstart video for that Liatris last year. If you want to go back and look at that, I started those in cans and then put them in the ground there in several locations in the yard. They should be bigger, better, fuller this year. And there's a Verbena bonariensis that was done from seed last year, and it's coming back rapidly and is actually already budded up here in the middle of April. A couple other things worth mentioning: the dwarf ginkgo that was planted from last summer. I got that one from Mr. Maple on a visit to their place. It has leafed out, and not in a big hurry, so it won't do a whole lot of growing this spring, but a little bit. To the right of that, there's an anemone that's tucked in behind the salvia. A couple other various salvias coming up. And one other thing I'd like to point out here is there's this maple tree in the yard next door, and it's under some stress, and boy, is it getting seedy. Just an amazing amount of seedlings coming up from this thing, and it's amazing what constitutes a weed. This maple is definitely a weed in my garden. Pansies have really started to fill in. You can see the tulips have passed at this point, but the pansies are really filling in that bed and look great. Several different places with them throughout the landscape. We finally got some rain here. I have been putting this video up on Monday, and it'll be Tuesday or Wednesday when you see this, because it rained all day today. For some reason, we have just gotten, rain gets close to us and then it just dies out. Rain gets close to us and dies out. But so we finally had a good soaking rain, which these plants really needed. I've actually seen some things, as things are coming out and putting on all this new growth, it requires a lot of water. And so I definitely don't like to see things stressed this time of year. There should be plenty of water, but somehow there's not. I'm going to have Steph come over here and we'll look at this Empress of China dogwood. I think we're a week or two away from this thing really being a showstopper. You can see the bracts starting to open up, and it's just got thousands and thousands of flowers on it. I've talked about this thing being tardily deciduous. So it's an evergreen, it's a Chinese evergreen dogwood, but the leaves actually drop off as the new growth is coming out. And so down underneath it here, you can see, there's a big pile of leaves underneath it, but that's what it does. We call these plants tardily deciduous, meaning that they're deciduous, they just hold them through the winter and appear to be evergreen, but literally it's lost almost every leaf from last year at this point. Just a few more to go, all new foliage, and then the flowers are starting to show some color. You can see the Miss Kim Lilac, which I showed in a video the other day, is doing this because it's full of water at this point. There's one other salvia here, Steph, that is already showing some color as well. Some of these early blooming salvia nemorosas and other salvia varieties are pretty quick out of the gate. Some of the Mexican salvias, and then some of the other salvias are barely breaking dormancy at this point, and it'll be June before they're blooming. Had some really beautiful allium bulbs, which are going to bloom. Here's one that's starting to show a little color here, one that's budded up, and others that are starting. But look how damaged. That night we had back in the middle of March, these had just poked their head up through the ground a bit, and it just turned that foliage to mush. But other than, they're still going to bloom somehow, but they definitely look a little rougher. I might, at some point, just cut some of that rough-looking foliage off of them. Shasta viburnum behind it is showing some color. I need to do some pruning on it. It'll be in a pruning video in the next week or so. One other thing that took some damage was the Indian hawthorn, the tree-formed Indian hawthorn, Rosalinda. It's got a few open flowers on it, and they're fragrant, but I hate that wind really did this. We didn't get a night cold enough this winter to actually hurt this plant, but we had that wind that one night, the below freezing wind that just dried these flower buds out. So I've got very few on it. That's life. I think as it matures, it will be less prone to that type of less prone to that type of damage. The one at the Ralston is 15 feet tall and 15 feet wide, and it has no damage whatsoever. One native that I actually haven't shown is this blue-eyed grass, which is just starting to open a few flowers. I think by next week it'll be showing off a bit more. Of course, it's first year in the ground, so it won't do as much as it will do in the future. But it's got that beautiful blue-green foliage, grass-like, but it's actually in the iris family. My gray ghost Elysium is just in full flower right now. These amazing spider-like flowers, and this particular variety is variegated, and then the green parts of the leaf are kind of a hazy. I don't know how to even describe this coloration in this leaf, but it's quite striking. I kind of know why they call it gray ghost, because it does have a kind of a grayish look to it, but full flower right now. I showed off the two Weigela here in a what's your favorite spring flowering plant video the other day. The Shining Sensation is now still not fully open, still not fully colored up. The rain has beat it down a bit today, but it'll pop right back up tomorrow. The variegated one is in full bloom. Transplanted it last week. Flowers are all open, so cool enough outside and watered in well and transplanted well. It doesn't seem to have taken any shock at all. And then the tree form Encore Azalea is now kind of peak bloom right there. Tokyo Tower Dianthus, or upright narrow Chinese fringe tree, is fully leafed out. I've got a few little pieces along this bottom stem here that need to be cleaned up on it, but looks great. Limited flowers again this year, and I think part of that was I did prune a couple little branches off up here. May have had a few flowers on them, but even the ones that I didn't cut don't have any. Could have possibly been that freeze in March, or it just could be because it's an immature tree. That's life, but it'll have more flowers on it in the future. I always get lots of comments on the Tamukiyama Japanese maple. If I lift it up just a bit, you can see that in the past I contorted the main trunk on this tree, and I'll continue to do that in the future. It's caused it no harm. Some people, for some reason, think that, think poor tree. I've had that comment before, but I've had this thing a long time, and it's been well taken care of, and it's perfectly happy. Actually, gardenias are starting to bud up, which is, a little early for them, honestly. Kind of such a weird mix of things coming out late and things coming out early this year. The Golden Falls Redbud is another one I'm not getting many flowers on because it's just an immature tree. I'll get more flowers on it in the future, and I'll get more, faster growth on it. It'll come out earlier. I see a lot of the other redbuds are fully leafed out already, and this one's behind, but it is in the process of leafing out. I think by even next week, it'll be almost solid yellow, and of course the leaves are 3 or 4 inches across. Back here, just want to point out that tomorrow night, or I think as you're seeing this video, it's supposed to be in my area 37 degrees. So I think some outlying areas will likely get frost or freezes. Up toward the Virginia border, almost certainly frost or freezes. If you've put out anything already that is vulnerable, it probably needs to come in or needs to be protected. I have literally flats everywhere. Some things have been purchased, some things have been in unboxing videos, a lot of it's been done from seed here, just a ton of stuff. It'll go in as soon as this potential frost tonight happens. So a week or so from now, all of these things are going in, and this place is really going to transform. Almost every single dahlia from last year is coming back here. If Steph can bring us in here a little bit closer, this is kind of amazing. I mean, I'm in zone 7. It's kind of the transition where dahlias will come back or not come back. Once they come back, they'll come back pretty much every year once they get that kind of size on the tuber. So now I'm pretty much set. Another noxious weed, porcelain berry. Pretty much set on this space, having dahlias returning every year. Same thing over here, and they've jumped up in size really quickly. I think you can see the fennel between the camera and the dahlias back there. But I've got a bunch of dahlias that I did thinking that I wasn't going to have them all come back, and so now I've got to find some other place. I'm sure I can find some other places for dahlias in the landscape. The potatoes back here look fantastic. I'm going to have one more round of putting a little bit more compost in these bags. These would be super vulnerable to a freeze. They're fine at 37, probably fine with even a minor frost on them. But if they get a heavy frost or a freeze, they'll kill those plants back to the soil. Won't kill the potato, but it'll set you back a couple weeks for sure. So again, if you've got potatoes looking like this or new foliage on them, think about that for a frost or a freeze. I think, again, I don't think I'm getting down to quite those temperatures. Got to put a bit more soil in there. This area here in front of me will have the cattle panels put up this week, and tomatoes and peppers will go into this area. There's some beets that have come up toward the front, but there's a few weeds that are also encroaching in that area. I got to get out. Most of the garden right now is pretty weed free, except for a few weeds you saw me pull as we went, but I've got a few in that spot. Here are the cool season vegetables that went in. I don't know now, maybe 3 weeks ago at this point. Time to start harvesting some of these leafy greens. But overall looks great. Got some empty spaces in between here where I'll go ahead and plant some of the summer vegetables right on top of these. And in fact, that'll offer some shade to some of these, and maybe give us some greens for an extra week or two by shading them. So there you go. There are a few things that are going on here in the garden here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Zone 7B. Don't forget to follow along with the channel. Tons of things. I mean, absolutely. You can see all those trays over there that are going in. It's going to be a wild amount of things going into this garden here over the next month. So thanks for following along.